Tonight's episode of Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. Algonquin Outfitters, with 5 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Salis Marine, keeping you safe on the water since 1999. Ostrom Outdoors, custom fit canoe packs and barrel harnesses. Badger Paddles, handcrafted canoe paddles made to order. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. Well, happy Tuesday evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show, a show that's going to bring you a lot closer to the great outdoors, and especially with tonight's guest and topic. My name is Dennis, also known as Canoehound. You know what? I think I just said that, but I'm out of practice. I just want to apologize for missing last week's show, which was supposed to have been our 150th episode. Real milestone for the show here, of course. But sometimes things just do not work out as planned, right? And we had to forego last week's show. But you know what? We have our 150th show tonight, and we have a fantastic guest to kick that show off. So stick around with us. The next 2 hours is going to be, it's probably going to fly by just knowing the content that we have. But enjoy. Grab yourself a cocktail, grab yourself a hot beverage, and sit back, relax, and keep the questions coming in the chat because we're going to be utilizing a lot of them tonight. If this is your first time tuning into the show, thanks very much. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. And you know what? Thumbs up are really cool too. Really helps us get noticed with the algorithms. So that's really helpful for the show. If this is your first time watching the show, we are live every Tuesday evening, or for the most part, most Tuesday evenings at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard. We're live right here on YouTube. We also play on Facebook, live on Facebook as well. But for after the show, you can always check us out in the past episodes playlist right here on Canoehound Adventures. Or you can also find us on YouTube Music and listen to us as a podcast in your vehicle. So by all means, check it out. If you happen to miss the show, there's a few different ways you could always get caught up. As I mentioned, if you missed our show last time, well, as things didn't work out, but the show before that was a really interesting show. We featured Bill and Ann Ostrom from Ostrom Outdoors, and we talked everything about barrel or canoe packs and basically all the do's and don'ts and the goods and the bads. And it was a really good show. Bill and Ann are sponsors of the show. And every once in a while, I will do a sponsor highlight show. And that was a really good one to have because I have been using Ostrom packs for a number of years now. Big Red is my pack. That's the nickname of my pack. It's actually an Ostrom Wabikini. And the old ones versus the new ones, they've changed a little, but they're the same great quality packs. So if you're ever looking for a canoe pack, by all means, have a look at the Ostrom packs. They're well worth the time to check them out. Let's see here. I just want to forewarn everybody that I'm trying not to make this habit forming, but next week there won't be a show. Just to let you know, carry on, or you know what, get caught up on some past episodes, but we're going on a family holiday. We're heading down to Dominican for a week and going down there with a big group of people. And this guy's going back there after my illnesses I had over the holidays and stuff. I'm going down there just to unwind and chill out and have lots of cocktails in the sun and spend a lot of time in the pool or on the beach. So that's going to be Canoehound next week. But we will be back. We do have some shows coming up here in February that are going to be really, really interesting. Stay tuned to our Facebook page at Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show for updates on that as to exactly what's coming up. Now, many of you might be aware that trade show season is upon us, no matter what industry you're in. But the outdoor industry, especially, we do have a lot of great shows coming up here in the future. And I just thought I would just give you an idea or a rundown of a few of the shows that are coming up. First one I have on my docket here is the Toronto Outdoor Adventure Show on February 23rd to 25th. That's going to be at the International Center across from the Toronto Airport. Many of your favorite YouTubers are going to be there, and outdoor celebrities will be presenting at the show, including Camper Christina, Brad and Leah Jennings, Kevin Callan, Hap Wilson, Adam Schultz, Ben Beauchamp, who was a past guest here a couple weeks ago. Good old Evan Lefebvre is also going to be presenting, Sean Rowley, and I'll be there myself. I'll be presenting myself on Saturday at 3:30 on the Adventures in Paddling stage. So if you happen to come on out to the show, by all means, please do stop by and say hello. Make some time to watch some of these great presentations that are going to be happening. I myself will be doing a presentation called One Off the Bucket List, a Wabakimi experience. I'll be talking a bit about my my canoe trip, big canoe trip from this past summer. I'll also be hanging out at the Kid Products display, which is right next to the stage pretty much. And usually we have a lot of personalities stopping by and hanging out there because they all hang out there to watch all the other presentations that are going to be happening. So by all means, please do stop by. Please do stop by. Another show coming up, the Quiet Adventure Symposium in Lansing, Michigan on March the 2nd. I don't think I'll be attending that one there, but a lot of people I know will be going to that. So I understand that's a really good one-day show. And then, of course, on the weekend of March the 8th to the 10th, Canoecopia is happening in it's North America's largest paddle sports show. And that's over in, what's the name of the place? Gosh, somebody put it in the chat. But yeah, that's going to be another great show. I will be at that show as well. I'll be going down with a few of the boys from Kid Products, and I'll be spending some time over at the Novacraft canoe display. I'll be spending some time over at Badger Paddles, I'm sure. And yeah, we just hopefully run into some of my American friends down there. So if you do happen to see me wandering the aisles, come on over and hit me up for a sticker or two, because I always carry them to give away at the shows. Anyways, that's a lot of babble about shows and stuff. Just want to thank my my channel members. We do have a lot of channel members to be acknowledged. Thank you very much to all of you. I noticed that tonight we also have a new member. I'd have to find that somewhere else, but thank you very much. Please do drop me your email at canoehound@gmail.com or email me your address and I'll get your perks all started for that there. Somebody celebrating a 12-month as a member, as the crows fly. Thank you very much for 12 years of your support throughout the 12 months over the past year. So thank you very much for that. And for anybody that might be interested in becoming a channel member, there's a join button down here. And for as little as 13 cents a day, you can help support the channel, get your name on the screen, get some stickers and some swag and stuff like that. All cool stuff that we actually do for our channel members. Let's see, what else do we have here? We've got, I got a few coffees this week that had come to me as well. Thank you to Beauty of the Backcountry, Steve Bentley, and Phoebe Jade for your coffee contributions. Let's take a dip, everybody. Cheers. Back onto the coffee and off of the tea. Thank goodness. I love my coffee. Let's see here. We do have some special announcements, especially seeing as I missed last week's show. I have a little bit to make up for, right? But on the 23rd of January here, our good friend Evan Lefebvre celebrated a birthday. Happy birthday to you, Evan. Yesterday, Tim Good from Super Good Camping. Tim, happy birthday to you, my friend. Happy birthday. A close friend of the family here, Sabina Lacasse. Actually, her significant other is the D in Kid. It's her birthday. Friend Dan Maylot, his birthday's on the 30th, so that's coming up. That's today. Dan, happy birthday, man. Justin Barber, past guest of the show on February 1st. Jim Baird is turning another year older on February the 2nd. And then, of course, the K in Kid Products here, Keith from Kid Products on February the 4th. That's the day we leave for Dominican. So, unfortunately, I won't be here to wish him a happy birthday next week. But happy birthday to you, Keith. So, anybody that might have a special event coming up and they would like us to mention it, because a few of these were sent in to us. Thank you very much. That makes my job a lot easier. just drop me an email here at canoehound@gmail.com, and I will do my darndest to make it happen. We'll get it up here on screen, and we'll share in the festivities with you, right? That's good stuff. Let's see here. And once again, also, if you have any hot topics or guests you'd love to see on the show, that's the key address right there. Send me an email at canoehound@gmail.com. I answer all emails that I read and answer all emails that come in. So don't think they're going to fall up on deaf ears, because they certainly won't. And then last but not least, we have a great guest and a great topic for you tonight. And of course, you're all going to have questions. So I would love to see your questions, more so on the second half of the show. But if you do have any questions, please do utilize that chat over there, but put the word question in capital letters before your question. Just makes it a lot easier for me to identify. I could then mark the questions, and if we don't get to them right away, we will certainly get to them later on in the show. So that's a good thing there too. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into tonight's guest. Tonight, we're joined by a paddler turned map maker. He got to start tripping through Algonquin at the age of 8, when his father took him on a weekend-long trip. Once he was 15, he planned his first trip with a friend from school, which, as it turned out, was quite an adventure. That inadvertently led to the start of his map-making career, as it inspired him to create the most accurate and detailed maps of Algonquin Park. Please welcome to the show, from Maps by Jeff McMurtrie. Hey, Jeff, how you doing, man?
Hey, Dennis. Great to be on. I'm very excited, especially for show 150.
Yeah. Thank you very much for being our 150th show guest. Yeah, that's the way. I won't say guest because we've had many guests, but yeah, that's cool. Man, you know what? There's a lot of buzz going on these days about this right here, this map set. It's been long awaited. People are so excited to be seeing that it's now available. And I think tonight we're going to give a lot of details, or you're going to give a lot of details as to what the buzz is about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Before we get to that, though, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Who is Jeff McMurtrie?
Yeah, well, I mean, in my mind, I'm just another paddler. I got started, like you said, when I was 8 and going with dad. And then I guess the ball really got rolling, like you said, when I was in high school, right? Because when I was younger, I was kind of forced into it, right? And honestly, at first, I kind of hated it, right? It's hot, it's buggy, there's no friends. But obviously, at some point, something changed there. And yeah, into high school, me and my partner, we started going on trips together. And so the first time I brought him, I thought, okay, let's try something new. Let's try backpacking, right? That's gonna be fun, something different. And then I realized it's like a long portage. You're getting along the trail, and suddenly you get to the lake, and you're like, "Yay, we're at the lake!" And the trail's like, "And goodbye, lake." So
Yeah.
that was the start there. But then a year after, I thought, okay, we're gonna go canoeing because canoeing's great. We're gonna have a great time. Let's try going somewhere new. Let's try going to that same area we gone backpacking by canoe, right? Same area, different perspective type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an interesting trip. So yeah, I mean that's kind of where I got my start doing the map, because everything was wrong. So yeah, that was quite the adventure, right? So it's a little used part of the park, right? That's, I guess, kind of some of the background there. But there were portages missing. There were portages in sort of like the wrong side of the lake. There was a lake with the wrong number of bays. It's like, just go down the south side, South Bay, and it's like, no, no, no. There's actually an extra bay off there.
Mm-hmm.
Campsites completely misplaced and that sort of thing. And so I sort of got my start with the mapping because I thought, okay, this is a big deal. We had to kind of turn around and kind of mess up our trip a bit because of this. So I can tell the park, right? Then they can fix it and good stuff, right? I can kind of make my contribution. But it turned out that even though I told the park over and over, nothing ever changed. And so, just for myself, I didn't plan on sharing it or selling it or anything like that. But just for myself, I wanted a better map, and kind of just built it up bit by bit, really by marking up an existing map to start.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was just, I like paddling. I want a better map. Let's do this for myself, and things. went from there.
It's funny how things just progress, eh? And they kind
Yeah.
of take on a thing. That like in my real life, it was the same type of thing. I'm a graphic designer, but I used to be a factory worker and just dabbling in graphic design and stuff like that. And then things, it was like these little baby steps. All of a sudden, I left my job in a factory because I opened my own business in the graphic design business. Right? It's neat how sometimes little passions turn into hobbies, turn into work, right? Or into
Yeah.
professional career. So that's cool. So okay, you kind of explained it, but how does one become a map maker? Like you obviously you didn't go to school for that or anything, right? And you're
I
at the pinnacle of this because you're not only making these maps, which are absolutely freaking incredible, by the way. I wish every map was as detailed as these, but you're taking it that one step further to actually have digital copies that you could put in Avenza, Google Maps, and all this. How, explain the progression there.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, so when I started out, the way I did it is I didn't start with a blank canvas. I don't think I ever would have if I had to, right?
Right.
But there was like an old version of the parks map online, maybe like a decade old at that point, right? And when you downloaded it, you could do get info and it said, made in such and such a program. And I realized that I could just tweak it one little bit at a time. So at first, like, I would just like drag a campsite, sort of correct its position, or modify a little portage or something like that. So that's what got me started, and from there, it's just really a lot of learning, right? A lot of trying things, and certainly along the way, there's lots of things where you try it, and you're like, oh well, that didn't work, but that's how you learn, right? So it's really going from there to here. It's been like just over 15 years, which seems crazy because I started in late high school, basically.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, it's just little by little. And if you look at, like, this is version 6 of the map, but if you look at it over time, you can certainly see that progression. So each one
Right.
looks different, and it really is a visual example of me learning as time goes on.
Right. So now going back to Jeff's maps, right? When you first, I guess, your first business endeavor, they you would hear everybody the banter about, hey, I got my Jeff's map for Temagami, and I've got my one for Algonquin, and they were big hits then in their infancy, right? Why is that? Like, were the maps available before just that bad?
Uh, I think it's a bit of both. They
Yeah.
were that bad, but I think you know one of the things that I certainly find neat about maps is that in a way they're a window into the park, right? Like, you use them very practically for navigation, but I think as well we use them to sort of imagine places we might want to go, as well as look back on places that we've been and that sort of thing, right?
Hmm.
And one of the things when I think of maps is that they sort of dictate the possibilities available to you. So if your map doesn't show a particular route, for example, well, you're not going to route, and it turns out there's some neat ruins off to the side, or a ice cold spring, or that sort of thing, but you don't know it's there. Well, you're going to just paddle right on by, right? And so my sort of approach was I want to just compile as much information as I can into one spot so it's available to you, whether it be that you're planning a trip or you're on the trip or whatever, and that really again gives you this enriched experience. The way I kind of got started doing that, or the reason I was inspired to do that, is really I would read, let's say, an Algonquin book, and I'd see some of this neat info in there, and I'd be on the trip and I'd totally forget, right? It's
Hmm.
one thing, you're at home and you're just reading through it, but I always forget when I was there. So I was really making notes to myself in a sense of, take a look at this or take a look at that. And I think that really connected with folks, because you see a lot of people, or one of the things I guess that I find neat is when I see people talking about things they did along the way, and I know that it's not anywhere else. So it's like they must have gotten it from my thing, and to see sort of the experience that they had that they wouldn't have otherwise, and certainly if they're talking about it, it was a highlight. That's pretty cool.
Hmm. Now, I'm going to be jumping around a little bit here throughout the show
Yeah.
because I do have a million questions in my head and pertaining to these new maps, or even
Yeah.
going back to the early days of Jeff's maps. How much, like, how much of the research, or not research, how much of the actual information within the map come from your own tripping versus how much you obviously to get this kind of information, that's not a one man show. You're obviously gathering stuff, like you said, from books and from people, and somebody might say that campsite's not there anymore or that porta. So I know it's sort of a collaborative effort and you put it all together, but how much of it is actually you? Because I know you love the canoe trip as well. How much is it of you? And when you get out on one of these trips, how much time do you spend actually like dawdling around the lake trying to find campsite? And then, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, it probably depends on sort of the element of the map, but, a lot of, let's say, the more obscure places, that's kind of where I like to go. I like to go where there's not a lot of other people, that sort of thing. Then I'm gathering the info as well that I'm not really getting from other people.
Mhm.
So, again, like the really obscure places that no one else likes to go.
Yeah.
And to your point, yeah, then, as a whole, though, it really is this collaborative effort because there's, you know, I don't know, I've been to maybe 60, 70% of the park through the years, but, there's plenty of places that I haven't been in, say, 10 years or whatever, right? So, getting updated info from people and so on is so, critical to sort of making the map what it is. And
Hmm.
then, yeah, you were also, you had another question there.
Oh,
Um,
do you spend a lot of time
oh,
dawdling
yeah,
around lakes?
yeah.
Like, saying, like, let's just alter that a bit. Okay, so if somebody goes on a canoe trip with you that doesn't usually trip with you, are they like, "Come on, Jeff, let's go," and you're like, "Wait a minute, I got to go check this bay over here." Is that the kind of thing that you
Yeah,
like
a
on a
little
canoe
of
trip?
that. A
Yeah,
little of that. It's the sort of thing where, because over time I'm building up this knowledge, right? There's certain things
yeah,
where I'm like, oh, I've kind of heard there might be something over here. So it's kind of along the way. There's all these things I want to check out. Like, I'm not 100% on this campsite, so let's go check that one out, right? So there's,
mhm,
there's always little adventures along the way. But in a sense, the way I see it is, it's just like if someone else was using the map, you're looking and saying, "Oh, look, maybe or there's this old ruins there." So, like, what's that look like, right? And so, you know, I think one of the fun things about doing the map, I guess, is that it certainly doesn't feel like work. This is
mhm.
going back a bit. I remember it's digression, but I remember talking to some of the folks that ran. I think it was Muskoka Paddle Shack, and they were saying they got into doing the store because they really enjoyed the outdoors. But then once they had the business, well, now it's work, and they didn't really get out as much as they did before. But for me, I'm kind of lucky because working on the map is so different than the sort of canoeing that I loved and still love, right? Working the map, I'm sitting here in front of a computer, typing away and so on. But on the trip, really, I'm doing the same sorts of things I'd like to otherwise. Like I got a little GPS here where I'm hitting buttons on it and that sort of thing. But aside from that, it really is, I'd like to check it that spring or that ruin or that portage or campsite or whatever, anyways. So,
Yeah.
I
So
have a
you
reason.
just pulled out the Garmin, right?
Yeah.
How was it 15 years ago when you started? Was it all just notes on a map versus today hitting a waypoint button?
Yeah, yeah, no, it certainly changed in that regard. It's a lot easier to gather some of that information accurately.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's easier. That's great.
Yeah, geez. What about when you said you got a lot of versions of these maps, like
Uh-huh.
your fifth version, fifth edition,
This this is the sixth. Yeah.
the sixth? Okay. How, is there a lot of change? Well, I guess I can answer that myself. But when you from version or edition to edition,
Mhm.
is there a lot of changes that usually go on? A lot of exclusions and inclusions?
Yeah, absolutely. Because certainly the way I approach the map, or kind of touched on this a bit before, but is I touch on it as it's always about trying to learn and improve over time, right? I always do
Yeah.
the best job I can, but then you have new ideas and new information and new whatever. So part of it is like the factual side of things, like, oh, I learned that that should be over there or whatever, right? But really, especially at this point, with like the Algonquin map, 'cause I've done it for so long, there's a lot less of that unless there's an actual change. Like there's not as many like errors, that sort of thing. Um, but what really then changes between the versions are the features, the way it's displayed, so the design, that sort of thing. And again, that a lot of that comes down to learning. So, as one example on the new map is that the text is a lot bigger, and that doesn't sound
Thank
like
you.
much. Yeah, yeah,
Thank
but
you.
that came down to learning, right? Because
Yep.
in the past, is certainly when I started, when I'm working on the screen, you're zoomed in, a whole bunch, 6400% or something, and it's easy to then sort of forget that, yeah, you're going to print this out, you have to be able to read it, right? So that's one of many changes on this particular version, trying to make sure that the font's a lot bigger. But yeah, I mean, there's things like at one point I added distances and times to the map, and in a sense, each feature has a story. That's what I like to say, right? But so I realized that. Let me put it this way: I like planning rather aggressive trips because there's all these things I want to see and do, right?
Mhm.
And I would make this mistake. I would say, oh, okay, on a reasonably sized lake, as long as the weather's good, I can do, I don't know, 4 to 5 kilometers an hour. So let's say we're going to go like 6 hours today. Let's go 25, 30 kilometers. And then, of course, it turns out, well, today we're not going down a big lake. We're going down a twisty creek, and then we're doing a dozen portages. We're spending a whole bunch of time loading, unloading, all that. And suddenly you're not doing a 6 hour day. You ended up doing like a 12-hour day, or maybe you didn't make it to your campsite today or something like that.
Mhm.
So you go through an experience like that. And as the map maker, the way I'm thinking is, well, how can I make sure that, you know, I sort of improve that experience going forward, both for me and for others, right? So you start with like a problem like that, and then from there it's all about, well, how are you going to display this on the map? You need to make sure it's not confusing, it doesn't make everything super messy, that it's, again, easy to understand. And then you get into design, you get into trying to figure out, yeah, how should this thing work, how do I communicate how it's going to work. And you put that out there. So with the times, I think I put that out there 1 or 2 versions ago. And again, you just, over time, you realize that, oh, this works great, this other thing doesn't work so great, let's think about how I can improve it. So,
Mhm.
getting back to your original question of do things change a lot between versions? Absolutely, and it really comes down to just over time, coming up or understanding new problems that I'd like to try to solve, and better ways of solving things that are already on the map.
Right. You know what? You'd be that type of person that a lot of people would probably really enjoy canoeing in Algonquin Park with, because a lot of people are they're that dart. You know what I mean? The only part of the canoe trip that they experience is that line from portage to portage across the lake. Whereas, some people would probably prefer to get out there, relax, and paddle the shoreline and check things out and explore a bit, the things you do when you have a layover day, perhaps, right?
Hmm,
So
hmm.
I could see you taking the tougher trips because, one, you're probably, not going to get as much feedback on them tougher trips because everybody, for the most part, will try to take the easier trips, right? But yeah, and you get a lot of remoteness. That's awesome, man. When are we going paddling, Jeff?
I guess this summer.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That would be incredible. So, can you give us a bit of the history of like the transition from Jeff's Maps on Lostify and now Maps by Jeff? Can you give us a bit of that history?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so it really kind of starts, like I said, before Jeff's map, just by a little bit. And that's really the progression was, it's a hobby. Well, I guess even if we go even back further, like I said, it was just for myself. Then I showed the map to friends, like camping friends, and they're like, "Oh, this is neat." So eventually, I'd mentioned again that I started really with an existing map. So I replaced everything that wasn't mine, put it online, and to me that was great because, again, it was just this little hobby. I didn't really have ambitions beyond that. but I think that was maybe 2008 or so. So really, mostly pre-smartphone. And so then I had people saying, "Well, I love this map, but how do I use it on a trip? Right? Am I gonna, you can print it out or whatever else?" But so then I started doing a map book, like a spiral bound book. So that was my first foray into making something, selling something, and that sort of thing. And at the time, I didn't really have a brand. It was like Jeffrey's Map or whatever, right? It was just different people would call it different things. So and then 2012, yeah, 2012, I was finishing university, trying to figure out what am I going to do next. And I thought, let's give this a shot for real, right? And so one of the things about printing, this sort of map is that you really have to print thousands at a time, right? They're relatively affordable to print per copy, but you can't go print, 100, because the way it works is all the sort of cost is in the setup.
Mhm.
In a sense, the
I can
first map
understand
costs
that.
you. Yeah. I mean, exactly,
Yeah.
right. You're a printing guy, but
Yeah.
in a sense, you get this huge setup cost, and then every copy after that's cheaper. And so I had a middle school friend, Eric. He had actually made a whole bunch of money in, of all things, online poker, and he had certainly an interest in business. So he said, "You know what? I'll put the money in. You bring the expertise, the knowledge, the map, and let's do this Jeff's map thing together." So he was really behind the scenes. It really was bringing some money in, and I was doing the map, and that was a lot of fun. And it was great because now that we had, again, these folded waterproof maps, as opposed to the map book that I had before, like that, this was really more suitable for retail stores like Mac and that sort of thing, where you can put it on a shelf. They're waterproof, tear resistant, all that good stuff, right? So it's like a product really that you'd want to be selling if you're doing this for real. So that was great, and yeah, things took off from there, which was really exciting. Like you'd said before, we did Algonquin first, of course, because that was where I got my start, and then added Killarney and Temagami, and I was working on a couple others. And unfortunately, Eric was acting kind of inappropriately behind the scenes, taking some money and that sort of thing. And the long and the short of it was, I realized, hey, I really can't continue with this guy. So I'd tried to buy him out, but it wasn't of interest to him, unfortunately. And so I kind of made the very tough decision, but to if he's not gonna be willing to leave, then I've really gotta leave and get away from him. But so that was a tough time, to be perfectly honest.
Mhm.
But yeah, but again, the way I like to think of it is lots of lessons along the way, right? So yeah, that was 2012, 2016 was Jeff's map, and I took a little bit of time to figure things out afterwards. And then me and another friend, we decided, hey, we're going to give this a second shot, if you will. So that's how Unlostify was born. And my friend, he had always wanted to try camping, but he had never really known how to start, if that makes sense. Right. Like
Mhm.
I was lucky, I had my dad, he brought me into
Yeah.
it, but he didn't have anyone to bring him into it. And I had, just again for fun. He knew I did the maps. He wanted to try, so we did a bunch of camping together. He had a blast with that. And so again, I was a little bit lost trying to figure out what to do. And we decided to do this Unlostify thing, which was great. And so we made a few more maps there. We made Killarney, French River, Kawartha Highlands, Massasauga, and that was 2018. Yeah, so we did that, and then we were working on the Algonquin map for years and years and years. It was like 5 years. So that was an interesting journey, right? It was, we
Yeah.
kind of fell into the trap of we want to make this perfect. It comes down to, we want to do a good job, right? And like I said, you're always looking at things you've tried before and trying to imagine a better way to do it, and so on. And so when we first announced that we were going to do this Algonquin map, that's because we were, fairly far along until we decided to redo a bunch of stuff. Again, all in the sort of vein of trying to do better, trying to do a good job, saying, I know exactly what we should do there, right? But
Hmm.
yeah, that ended up taking forever. So more lessons there. Um, but yeah, so then he had moved on about a little while ago now. Yeah, it's one of those things where all the dates are getting messed up because of COVID times, but a little while ago now. And then I finished up the Algonquin map myself, and yeah, that came out about 2 months ago. And I decided after all this time that I'd really like to put my name back on it, back on the business, right? I think it's a lot more personable than Unlostified or something like that. And I don't know. A side tangent was that Eric, the original partner, he had kind of been scamming people, unfortunately, taking their money and not shipping maps. But thankfully, that eventually got shut down. Took quite a while, way longer than you'd hope. But so especially that since he was out of the picture, like I said, I was doing this on my own again, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to rename Unlostified to Maps by Jeff to sort of put my mark on it, tell people I'm back, and go into the future. So,
Yeah.
yeah, here we are
That's
today, and
too bad that that had to happen, right? Because I can imagine that might make people think put a bad mark, you know what I mean, or a bad or
oh
a sour
yeah,
taste in somebody's mouth. But understanding that it wasn't coming from you, you've been very reputable with your stuff that I've seen over the years. So you know that's great.
oh, yeah. No, I felt so bad because some folks, you get emails like sometimes multiple emails a week from people who are like, I ordered maps. Can you help me? And it's like, I wish I could help you. I mean, I don't have your maps. I don't have your money. Can you contact your credit card company, please? Maybe eventually they'll stop him.
Yeah,
That was definitely it was hard to see that happening to other folks.
yeah. Wow. And now here we are. We're at a
Yeah,
beautiful map
exactly.
set series that you've obviously put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into. Before we get into discussing some of the details on this map series, what's your relationship with Algonquin Park? When you put out something so extensive like this, is there a little you know them helping you along with this here, sharing information? Or I know like a lot of the information is readily available through their maps that they may have already and stuff. But are they really welcoming to what you produced here? Because they should be.
Individuals, absolutely. There's all
Yes.
sorts of, like there was a wonderful lady in park information who's always been so kind and helpful. Park wardens I've talked to. A bunch of the fishing info on a map comes from somebody who was in park fisheries. But certainly as an organization as a whole, no. Um, yeah.
Wow.
Uh, Part of it is like there's certain things that they don't like on the map. In particular, they don't like that I show logging roads. It's
Right.
always kind of funny to me because you'll be going down to Portage, it's following a logging road, and it's there, right? And of course, for emergencies, it's good to know where they are. If you want to go bushwhacking into the forest, uh, they're there. It's completely legal to go walk them. So, the info's there. You can even see it these days on, their own aerial photos. If you go on like Fish Online or other sort of Ministry of Natural Resources tools there, they show it all, but they really, really, really don't like that I show where they are. So, anyways,
Yeah.
it's been a deal breaker apparently.
I wonder if that's got to do with like they try to maintain that pristine backcountry beauty of the park, right? But still maintain a sustainable logging industry within the park. But they don't want people to see that end, maybe, right? And by you showing the maps, it's like, yeah, you letting out their secrets, right? It's like, shame on you, good for you, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I guarantee you, if
Yeah.
you ask them, they would not say that. They'd like to say that they're not making any secrets of it. And like, there's certain things about it that I empathize with. So when you get in their mind, they want to prevent illegal access because you're not allowed to drive the roads. You can walk them all you want, that's fine. But they're trying to prevent things like invasive species, people driving in and overfishing spots that are otherwise hard to get to, all that sort of thing, which are
Mhm.
good, noble goals. But at the end of the day, like they've got gates, so they can lock the gates.
Yeah.
They don't, honestly, um, but in my mind, again, like if you're going along a portage, I want you to know that hey, you should turn off this road at a certain point because that's where the portage goes in case you miss the sign or whatever, right?
Yeah.
They're there, they exist. I don't see any reason to sort of change reality and pretend they don't. So
Mhm.
that's that.
Here they are, right? Cool,
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
Now, I keep saying it, amazing maps, right? And there's other map makers out there, like one you're probably familiar with, Arnaud from Lat Long. He makes some fantastic maps. So my question is I guess, like, are maps a dying art because of the GPS units?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, so many years ago, one of the things I realized is kind of to your point that making the base map itself, like, oh, there's a lake here and this is the shape of the lake. Like that's not that complicated in a sense. Like lots of people have lots of errors. And so again, because of how I got my start, it's really important to me to be as accurate as possible in that. So it takes a certain amount of effort. But to me, what differentiates my maps is all the stuff that goes on top of that. And so before I kind of alluded to the idea of, in a certain sense, like the map's like a gatekeeper, right? If you don't have something on the map, then it's not even an opportunity in your head. And so what I really try to do through again, we're also talking, I guess, about what's different between the versions and all the features I try to add. So the way I look at it is by adding I try to add all these different features that are going to hopefully change your relationship with the park, change the experience that you have, and hopefully really give you a trip that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So, for example, I touched on things like points of interest, but then on the new map, I have things like I show route difficulties, right? And that's so I show typical routes, challenging routes, and very difficult routes. Look,
Mhm.
is color coded. And the idea there, for example, is not to dissuade anyone from doing the hard stuff. Again, like I said before, I like doing the hard stuff. It's a lot of fun. You get to go a lot of fun places and see all these cool things. But in my mind, I'm really trying to then help people set expectations, right? So if you know that you're going to have a hard day, maybe you just want to make it a little bit shorter. Or maybe you don't want every day to be a hard day, or that sort of thing. And you see people asking these questions on forums and Facebook and email all the time. And so I'm really trying to take the knowledge that's in my head, whether I've been to a place myself, whether I've talked to people about it, whether I read about it, whatever, and sort of dump it onto the page. And so in my mind, I'm trying to, in a sense, both overwhelm people with options, but then make it easy to sort through them, right? To sort of pick out the trip that works for you. And so all this additional type of content, and there's certainly a lot more, we talk about that after, but all this additional content to me really means that you can have completely different experiences, like I said. And so,
Mhm.
sure, it's got the campsites and the portages and all that, and they're accurate. And other folks have that too, the campsites and portages and all that. But this sort of extra layer of info, really, in my mind at least, changes fundamentally the type of trip you're going to have.
Sure. Awesome. Well, let's get into talking about these maps. Let's go over some of the details
Sure.
because it's not your typical map set, man, for Algonquin. First off, there's what, 5 maps to the series?
Yeah, exactly. 5 maps. Yeah, there's west, central, east, north, and south.
Okay. And why 5 maps though? Like why not just
Oh
one map?
yeah.
Like
Oh,
I
that's a
look
great.
off the well, okay, on your side. Look over to the wall over there, and I have a Temagami map. It's one map,
Yeah,
the whole region of Temagami, right? Uh,
yeah,
the old Algonquin Park map I have, the one that you buy from the park, one map, right? It's one piece, maybe a couple little subsections on the back or something, right? But you have 5.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh yeah.
Tell us
Again,
about it.
what a great question. So it's not only there's 5 maps, each one's double-sided. So in a sense, there's like 10 maps on 5 sheets. You know, you buy 5, you get 10. Um, but it's all about the detail, right? So uh, someone was asking me recently, like that, you know, they wanted like a full-size wall map, and I kind of mapped it out. It would have to be 8 feet by 8 feet. So
I
you
can
can
print that
imagine.
for you.
Oh,
I can
there you
print
go.
that on
Exactly.
like a wallpaper. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it's all about, you know, you can put it onto a single sheet, sure, as long as you zoom out a whole bunch and you lose all the detail,
Mhm.
right? So yeah, I mean, it's a balance for sure, right? Because I, if you ever look at Quetico maps, it's kind of crazy. If you want like to cover Quetico, a bunch of the brands have like 15 maps, which makes zero sense to me. But the way I look at it is trying to find a happy medium, right? So I really want wherever possible to make it so that you only need a single map for the trip, right? I don't want it to be that, oh, I want to go 1 inch over the sides. Now I need to spend a whole bunch more money. So I do make them overlap a little bit. And most importantly, I've really tried to lay them out with the routes people take in mind so that nothing's cut off at a weird place. So the sort of idea then is that, hey, as long as I can hopefully cover your route on a single map, the more zoomed in we can go, the more detailed we can go, then again, the more of this fun, cool stuff we're going to have on the trip. And I just couldn't do that if we were, you know, way zoomed out, like the official park map, for example.
Mhm. Wow, that's crazy. So I did notice that about the maps because I had them all laid out there the other day at
Yeah.
my shop on our big workbench, and it's amazing the overlap that you do have. And I was wondering why so much, and then I kind of keyed into it as well that you got that overlap so that people can get away with one map for a route type of thing, right? But that's amazing, and the detail that you have on it. Let's get into like if you open up the map, and I'm just going to put myself to full screen here for a second. Actually, you should be showing this here, but we got all this like all this detail on here, right? Markings and all the stuff like that, which puts this map right into context as to you know how it. Where are we here? There we go. Got you back. Yeah, you tell us about it because nobody knows these maps better than you do.
Sure, sure. So yeah, I guess my favorite feature on the new map is actually, you want to do this the screen sharing thing?
Full screen, yeah, for sure. Right here. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Woo! So my favorite new feature on the map, you can see here, are for these little portage profiles, these little side views. You can see in here. And like I said, every feature has a story, right? And I'm sure we've all had these experiences where you're going along a portage and halfway through you say, okay, perfect, this is break time, so take a little bit of a pee break, snack break, whatever. And then you start going and you're like, and turns out we were at the very bottom of the hill. You get to the top and you're exhausted, right? If only you
Yep.
knew. And so it was interesting actually. On the previous version of my map, I had sort of tried to address this problem, but I did it a little bit differently. So on the previous version, what I would do is actually I even have it here. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Oh,
One
I
second.
get where you're going with this. What a great idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, have your
one
snack on
second
the
here.
top of the hill, right?
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's not trying to dissuade people from kind of going to a particular spot, but really just trying to help you suss out, uh, you know, how you gonna do this thing, how many portage you gonna do today, and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, on the previous version, what I'd done is what you can kind of see here on this one that there's this number here. That's an elevation meters above sea level. So this particular lake was 406. And what I did on the previous map is I would put a little dot at the highest point along the portage. And then the next lake, I'd show the elevation again. And so in my sort of mind, the idea is that you could do this like, okay, that's sort of the shape of the hill, right? But again, talking about learning there, one of the things I came to understand over time is not so much about the amount of elevation you gain, but really how quickly you gain it, right? In a
Mhm.
sense, you can imagine that if you gained, I don't know, let's make numbers up here for a second. If you gained 50 meters over a kilometer, right? It's a bunch of climbing, but that is going to be the same angle and the sort of same steepness of hill as if you did 25 meters over 500 meters, or if you did 12 and a half meters over 250 meters. And so the
Right.
real point there is that I realized, even though in my mind, it would be great to show this sort of elevation differential in meters before, the meters was a little bit deceiving, right? Because you'd look at it and say, oh, it's a big number, it's got to be a big hill, but sometimes it's going to be relatively flat because you're gaining it over such a short period of time. But you can imagine that you could gain 3 meters, 5 meters, whatever. If it's going to be like this, you're going to feel it, you're going to notice it.
Yeah.
So this feature here, again, my favorite of the new maps, was really trying to address that and give you this visual picture of the portage. It's kind of interesting as well because, in a sense, it's doing the same thing as the little lines in the background, right? The contour lines. The contour lines give you the shape of the landscape, but this when you have it overhead like that, you've really got to build a picture like I've got here now on the map in your head. But instead, because everybody's walking the same trail, I can walk along, with the Garmin,
Mhm.
GPS it, and then put it right beside. So instead of you having to imagine it, now it's right there for you. And so then I was talking about the hills there. So what I do then is I go through each of these portages, each of the GPS tracks, and I find the steep spots. So it's not so much about, again, the meters gained, but really how steep is it? What's it going to feel like when you get there,
Mhm.
right? How tired are you going to be, really, right? So that again you can plan the trip that matches your experience. So yeah, this is definitely my favorite feature of the new map, the most complicated one to do, but I'm super proud of that one.
Is every single portage marked like that, or are most portages marked like that?
Most, it's something like 80-90%,
Yeah.
because in my mind, the most important thing about my maps is that they're accurate,
Mhm.
right? It's easy to sort of put on, like, there's other ways I could have done it other than using the GPS. It would have been a lot easier, a lot quicker. But when I had sort of done the math on it, looked into it more or whatever, biggest thing was that they weren't really that accurate, right? Um, and so to me, it's better to not show a few of them and say, "Hey, I just haven't been there yet," rather than to, in a sense, do a bad job on them, and then you go do that when you say that doesn't match reality. What's this guy talking about? So yeah, it's about 80-90% of them, but hey, for the future, there's always more coming.
Cool. Now I'm looking at the map here that you have on screen. I see the brook trout, lake trout, brook trout, and you're on. You did a whiskey fireside chat with Mr. Callan there, and he
Hmm.
was saying, "Hey, you're showing the fish species." He said, "Yeah, but you're not showing where the fish are, right?" So this is giving people an indication, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? And I don't show you how good it is or that sort of thing. That's for you to figure out. But it's
Yeah.
really, again, trying to point you in the right direction of, hey, here's all these opportunities. So that if you're planning a trip, why don't you check it here or here or here or you know?
Hmm. All right. More details.
Oh yes, absolutely. So one of the things, like I said, is the points of interest. I've had them on the map for quite a long time. They've looked different in the past, but like I said, I always sort of change the design over time. But I've got a whole bunch of new ones this time around. So both quantity wise, there's something like for the historic ones, there's something like triple the number in the previous version. And there's a whole bunch of new categories, which is kind of fun. Again, because there's all these new things to see along the way. I mean, they're not new; they've been there, but now they're on the map. So I've got
Mhm.
things like clear lakes. I've got things like old forest fire sites. I've got earth science, life science. Um, actually, I have a list here. Trying to go off my memory, but yeah, I got cliffs, lookout points. that's always fun. You're going along the trip, and it's like, oh, there's a little trail up here. We take this trail, and we get to the top. You get this sort of like aerial kind of view. That's always a lot of fun.
Hmm.
I've got oh, another new one is notable painting spots. I know some people are really into like art and that sort of thing, and finding the Tom Thompson painting spots and all that. So we got a bunch of that sort of stuff marked. Um, Waterfalls, swimming spots. And there's a lot more too, but that's fun. Um, what else is new on the map? Oh, it's another one. I already referenced this, but there's the colors you see here. So the roots, there's yellow, orange, got some red. So that's for root difficulties. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and one of the things that's really neat about that is, in a sense, so on a high level, the colors are trying to answer the question like, hey, Jeff, what do you think of this root? So if you asked me, this is my opinion. But for each one, the way I do it, I'm just going to zoom out for one sec here. A little blurry as it loads here. But the way I do it is that those colors are summaries. So, if you're the type of person who just loves detail, right? You're like, yeah, but I want to know why. Well, each one of those, there's reasons on the map that'll explain why I chose to make it that color, right? It's a
Hmm.
it's a great summary, so you can see it at a distance. Like, oh, wait a second, don't want to miss that. It's red. What's going on there? But like I said, there's always lots more detail. So uh, difficulty wise, we've got things like potential for wind. So big lakes, like if you're familiar with Algonquin, big lakes like Opiongo or Cedar, that sort of thing. If you're experienced, that you might be familiar with that. But sometimes people, they get themselves into trouble because they just don't quite appreciate how significant the wind can be. So that's one of the things I show on there. Another, it's a new feature, but again, it also ties into this difficulty stuff, as I now show where there's a dense alder. Dense alder being, of course, just like when you get branches growing across the creek,
Hmm.
and suddenly you're getting, leaves in the canoe and branches whacking you in the face and spiders dropping in and all that fun times. So I show that on the map now, and that's integrated into the difficulties. Portage length. I also now on the map I show which portages are marked with signs versus ones that aren't. Or again, I don't want to be inaccurate. So if I don't know, I just say, I don't know. The condition of the portage, so if it's overgrown or not. Um, the sort of maximum hill on the portage. So I categorize the hills into steep, very steep, and crazy steep. And again, that goes into the root colors. Again, just trying to draw your eye to all these little details, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then I mean, again, talking about detail, these days as well on the map, I even have the creek widths, creek and river widths. So it's both handy if you're on an official route and you get a sense of like, oh, it's probably be a little bit slower, a little bit more annoying because it's really narrow. But even if you're the type of person that enjoys going off trail, I mean, that's where I think that sort of feature is really handy, um, because again, there's all these wonderful routes in the park, all these official routes, and I show even a whole bunch of unofficial ones. But the way I try to look at the park, or the way I imagine the park, is that really you can go anywhere, right? You might be looking at the map and say, I wonder what this Paddy Lake is like. And so you can kind of see, well, I have to zoom in because this one has a real narrow creek leading to it. And so you might be wondering, like, hey, could I paddle there? No.
Hmm.
Uh, Again, it's really trying to, like I'd said this before, we're really trying to overwhelm you with options so that you can go through and find the perfect trip for you. So overwhelm you, but then give you the info you need to find the route that works for you. And we're talking about creek widths. So you can see here, if you can see my mouse, this one is a big wide one. So you might be staying on Big Porcupine for the day and say, that's not an official route or anything, but let's go check it out and see how far we can get.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and then I guess in terms of if you are the type of person who likes the off-trail exploring, another feature I've got here, you see all this hand-drawn pencil on stuff. So in addition to the yellow, orange, red difficulty stuff, if you are the type of person like me that likes going off trail, I've also got these, I call them adventure routes, but it's really just ideas of where you could bushwhack. And what I've done is I've annotated it with, I've heard that this person's gone there and that's kind of what they experienced. But I'm trying to also leave it up to you to, fill in the blanks.
Hmm.
So even if you are that type of really exploratory person, I'm definitely trying to provide, in a sense, just inspiration for experiences that maybe otherwise wouldn't have caught your eye. Um, what else? See,
How,
there's just
how,
so
how,
much
how
stuff.
fitting that
Yeah,
you're actually showing a route that I did, 2 or 3 years ago as a solo paddle. It was Ragged Lake, Big Porcupine up to Bonashare.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a fun one. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I know timing wise, I think you do have a sponsor break you have to do at some point, but I can
Yeah,
keep on
yeah.
blabbing as long as you want.
Well, you know what? Let's do that. Let's jump off here for our quick sponsor break. We're going to do a quick swag giveaway after the commercial break here. Then we're going to get into a bunch more details about these maps from Jeff, and we'll be taking some questions here from some of our viewers if that's all good with you, Jeff.
Oh yeah, of course.
Alrighty. Well, let's take a quick little break, everybody. Great chance to replenish your drinks or get rid of one, and we'll see you in a short minute.
There's nothing like being out there. For over 50 years, we've been connecting people with nature by building classic Canadian canoe designs using the best materials available. We built a reputation on durable, dependable canoes that allow you to focus on what's important, whether that's unplugging in remote wilderness, spending quality time with your favorite people, or nailing the perfect line. Visit novacraft.com to find the perfect canoe for you and locate your nearest authorized dealer.
Tonight's episode of Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. Algonquin Outfitters, with 5 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Salis Marine, keeping you safe on the water since 1999. Ostrom Outdoors, custom fit canoe packs and barrel harnesses. Badger Paddles, handcrafted canoe paddles made to order. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. Well, welcome back to the second half of Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show tonight, our 150th episode featuring Jeff McMurtrie from Maps by Jeff. Got to make sure we get that in the right order. Let's bring Jeff back up here. We're going to be doing a quick little swag giveaway, and then we'll get back on with some more details of, we'll bring the map back up, and you can give us some more ideas and details and just get into all that stuff. So, Jeff, you had a prize that you wanted to give away tonight to a lucky winner?
Yeah. I mean, the lucky
All right.
winner, so that they can pick their map of choice. I got, again, quite a selection. There's both the one of the 5 Algonquins. You can pick one of those, or there's also the other maps I have. So there's French River, Killarney, Kawartha Highlands, or Massasauga. So whichever map you prefer, you can win. Shipped right to your door, free of charge.
Cool. So what we're going to do is please don't put the answer in the chat. Don't put the answer in the chat. We're going to see if everybody was paying attention. Tonight's question is, how many maps make up Jeff's Algonquin Canoe Route series for the new map series? You'll have until Friday evening at midnight to get your answers into coasprize@gmail.com. Please Don't look at the chat. Somebody just put the answer in there. Please don't put the answer in the chat. But yeah, you know what? Drop me an email and we'll do a lucky random draw. We'll let the winner and Jeff know probably on Saturday morning sometime. And then between Jeff and the winner, they could organize as to exactly which map they'll be asking for. Let me just do one thing here. Just bear with me for a sec. You know what? Did that work? There we go. I pulled that answer off. Anyways, so how many maps makes up Jeff's Algonquin Canoe Route series? There we go. Alrighty, let's get back into more details, and we're going to ask. Actually, let's take a couple questions first, and then because that might send us in a different direction here. Let's see here. I got a bunch picked out here from early on in the show from Boris in the Forest. What was the most difficult part of the problem with Jeff's maps on Lostify issue with the other guy to get to this point finally?
What is the most difficult part of the problem with Jeff's maps? The guy to get to this point finally. I'm slightly confused.
You pretty much explained that in your history, right? Yeah.
Oh, history-wise. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say restarting from scratch. That was really difficult. If only psychologically, right? You know, you're staring at this blank canvas after having the map for so long prior. That was daunting, challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, I could imagine. Here, sorry, I'm clicking buttons all over.
No,
John
yeah.
Carlson's asking, wonder if woodland caribou's in the plan.
No. I mean, the biggest thing is always more ideas, more projects than time, right? But a good friend of mine, Glenn Peterson, he has his own map of woodland caribou. You can download it online. I wish I knew his website off the top of my head. Give me 1 second here. But he has a great map of the park, and I'm happy to defer to his excellent work. I should know this. Sorry, Glenn. My Woodland Journeys. That's your woodland caribou map.
And that's a beautiful map he has put together. Yeah.
Yes,
sure.
yes. So, great job. Any plans for a Quetico map?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, probably. No promises on timeline, right? But many years ago, towards the end of Jeff's map, that's what I was working on. Yeah. And I got maybe halfway through that. So, yeah, at some point, I'd love to.
Yeah. And right along the same lines, any plans for more parks? Yeah, you kind of said, yeah, there are other parks actually that you do have stuff on already, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. And it's more just really just to reiterate what I said before, more projects than time, right? There's both more parks I'd like to do. I'd like to make some more formats for the parks I already have. I have all sorts of neat ideas there. So it's really just a matter of prioritizing, right? And then, of course, doing updates over time. So, I want one guy, but I certainly would like to make more parks.
Well, what about updating the existing maps that you have? Because you do have several maps. You have, as you said, Killarney, Massasauga, Temagami, and a bunch of others. Are any of them? Do you do updates on them frequently, or just little dabbles here and there until you're ready to go full bore?
Yeah, I mean, a little of both, right? So for the maps you just mentioned there, like the Unlostify ones, so the Killarney, French River, Massasauga, Kawartha Highlands. I first came out with them in 2018, and then I've updated them since in 2020 and 2022. And so for those are mostly just smaller updates, sort of corrections, whatever else. And that's really because I was focused on the Algonquin map, if you will, at the time. We're trying to make sure, of course, that they are up to date and accurate. But yeah, of course, Algonquin has all these new features. Some of them we were touching on before there, and I certainly do intend to bring them over to the existing maps, and that'll continue over time, right? Because like I said before, none of this is static, right? None of this is like I reached the end, it's perfect, right? I'm always trying to learn and improve, and find new ideas, better ways of doing things I've already done, and so on. So yeah, they'll be updated with this design, and then I have more stuff to come in the future, right? So it'll always be an ongoing process.
Sure. Have you already started working on new details for the Algonquin, the next series of Algonquin maps? Years down the road.
Oh yeah, I mean, there was stuff that I mentioned. This map, it took 5 years to make, right? So there's features that about a year ago I was like, yeah, that's going to take forever. I'm going to cut that for now. That one's take forever, and so on, right? Because at the end of the day, there'll always be future versions. You can always put stuff on, but at some point you got to ship it, right? So yeah, I mean, really, I certainly have a whole bunch of fun and new ideas.
Yeah. From Chris here, how do you get elevations and grades? I assume you're not out there with
Mm.
surveying equipment.
Yeah. So the neat thing about the GPS, like the handheld type GPS, is that they capture both where you are. You get the little dot in the map saying you're here, um, but they also do capture elevation. And the way they do that is actually kind of weird, because if you use a GPS satellite type of elevation, it's actually really inaccurate. It's kind of useless. But then the way that these devices work is that they use air pressure of all things. And so, of course, air pressure changes over time. So if you stood in one spot, it'll look like you're moving. Um, but in a sense, as long as you're going from the beginning of the portage to the end of the portage, it gives you the correct shape of the portage with a lot of accuracy, a lot of detail. So that's how I do it. So in a sense, I'm not bringing surveying equipment per se, but yeah, I mean, it really is walking the, whether it be me or in a lot of cases, I've gotten GPS tracks from other fellow paddlers. So hey, if you've got GPS tracks, that'd be great if you could send them my way.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, I mean, and Dennis, you've been asking before about whether they all have little profiles or not, and I had said most do, but not all. That's why,
Yeah.
because if it hasn't walked with one of these, I don't know.
I did not know that because I have a Garmin InReach, the GS 60 or GPS Map 66i, which is an
Oh
InReach
yeah,
device. We'll talk about those a little later because you do have digital versions as well. But a few
yeah.
more questions here. Roughly how many hours all told did you invest in the new? You can't
Well,
count that high, can you, Jeff?
yeah. So I certainly I'm a little bit of a workaholic, to be perfectly honest. So I definitely work more than like 9 to 5. I probably something towards 7 days a week, where I put some effort in most days. Uh, a lot of days, more than 8 hours, and then figure out like 5 years, and that's for this version, right? Never mind past work. So uh, a lot of hours.
So this is your full-time gig, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm very lucky.
Cool. Here is an awesome question from Evan.
Mm.
Happy birthday, by the way, Evan. I'm not sure if you were in the chat there when we threw out birthday wishes, but I wish you a happy belated birthday. I believe it was your birthday yesterday, right? So, would you ever consider adding winter or seasonal specific details? A lot of people go winter
Oh
camping in
yeah,
Algonquin. Yeah.
100%. So yeah, again, this is we're talking about before somebody's asking about whether I want to do more parks, and I kind of said something along the lines of, and I'd also like to do more formats, something like that, right? And this is the type of thing I'm talking about, right? Because whether it be for winter camping, for backpacking, for bushwhacking, whatever, different types of trips, you care about different things, right?
Hmm.
So talking about winter, for example, right? Uh, Hills matter a lot. Like, sure, they matter on portages, but when you're hauling a sled behind you, small hills feel big and big hills feel ginormous. So elevation matters a lot more, right? In the winter, of course, there's things like wetlands. They're frozen. In the summer, no way you're going through a wetland, but in the winter, they're perfect travel surfaces. Um, and then talking about Algonquin specifically, a lot of people don't know there's actually a whole bunch of winter trails, not like the published ones the park does, but there's a fellow who worked for the park for 47 years, Craig McDonald, and he spent a lot of time uh, learning sort of where all the traditional trails are. Once again, they're not published on any map, but we're talking 100 years ago, and certainly well before that too, right? Aboriginal folks, what they were using. And so he, over the years, has gone through and he's marked um, and cleared out a bunch of these winter trails. He's marked them with these little orange dots. If you ever see them on a trip, that's what they are. and they're not mapped anywhere. And he's certainly getting on in age. I think he's in his probably 80s now, and he's certainly expressed interest in getting that kind of info onto a map somewhere. So that's, talking about other projects I'd like to do, even for Algonquin. That's definitely one, right? It really is just more projects than time, but that'd be a lot of fun, I think.
Cool. Another couple more, then we're going to get back into some
Yeah,
details. But this
yeah.
here's maybe let's do this one first here, and then we're going to use the other one as a segue into the GPS versions of your maps as well.
Mhm.
So Evan once again is asking, what are some of the biggest hurdles you face when it comes to making new maps?
Okay. Um, so if I'm doing, let's say, a new park, one of the conundrums I've gotten myself into is as I add more info to the maps, understandably, people are like, "Hey, you got this on Algonquin. I want this feature on all the other maps too." Well, yeah, as I add more and more info, it takes a lot more time, right? It's again pretty easy to go put a bunch of lakes and campsites on, but there gets to be a lot of research, a lot of field work, and so on, right? So, I mean, hey, that's what it takes to make the map that I'd want to use. So that's reality. But it's just one of those interesting sort of byproducts of adding all the detail.
Right. Excellent. And then this question from Paul Hoy, which will bring us back into this, right? But did you also create a version for GPS devices like Garmin?
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, I guess my perspective was, hey, I make the map, and then after I want people to use it however works best for them, right? So digital format wise, if you buy a map, you don't just get the waterproof printed copy, right? That's one of the things you get, but you also get a whole assortment of these digital versions. So you get, I got a list here just so I don't forget anything. You get there's an Avenza Maps version that's for iOS or Android. So here we are. Well, kind of can't see that there, but that's fine. It's all blown out. But yeah, so if you're a phone type of person, even at home, maybe you just want to sort of browse the map. Uh, you can use that on your phone. There's one for desktop computer, so the JPEG. There's a Google Earth version. The Google Earth version is super cool if you are the type of person who like going off route, you like bushwhacking, exploring. You can kind of plot out, the way you want to go. That's really fun. I've got a Garmin version, as you said. So certainly I use that myself when I'm going through the park and booping to save the campsites and that sort of thing. And really just trying to add as many formats as possible so that, like I said, you can use it however works best for you.
hmm And so if you order one of the maps, all these digital versions come along with it as well.
Yep. Yeah. So one of my little side projects is I've written a bunch of software so that when you press order, about 15 minutes later, you'll get an email with all this sent to you.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I thought was really unique with the maps too, and I commend you on doing it because music industry, movie industry, uh, piracy and bootlegging is a huge thing, right? But you kind of self or safeguarded yourself with this here. Can you explain a bit of the uh, currency has ways of doing away with counterfeits, right? What have you implemented here to do like to sort of this is how you make your living, right?
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
give his
yeah.
maps away, people. Do not give his maps away. Okay, so
Yeah,
explain what
no,
you
I
got.
mean, so with the digital versions, what I've done, actually, if you do the screen share thing again, I can kind of show you.
Yeah.
Let me see. So you'll see this one, it doesn't have any name, but usually right here, it would have just the name of the person that bought the map. It's kind of scattered all over. And
Sort of like
it's
watermarks.
basic water, exactly. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Perfect word, watermark. So the idea is really, fundamentally, like I said, I really want people to use the map in whatever way they want. Ideally, as many formats as possible, right? Like you want to use it on your tablet, on your phone, on your GPS, the printed version. That's great, right? Once you supported my work, I really want you to just use the heck out of it. But to your point, yeah, I'd ideally, because this is my full-time job, you know, it doesn't really work if one person buys it and then shares it with everyone else. So yeah,
Yeah.
I really want to be balance between these things. Right? I don't want to overcomplicate it. I don't want to make it so that like, oh, you downloaded it once, you could never put it on your tablet. You've got it on your phone or some silliness. So it's trying to balance out making it as accessible as possible. Not trying to, again, if you've already bought the map, I appreciate it. I don't want to be a pain in your butt, but at the same time, trying to make sure that it doesn't go get shared with a whole bunch of people who haven't bought it. So trying to make it as subtle as possible with those watermarks. But yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah,
see, so I received mine, and this is the copy he put in there that this map is actually registered to me. And you know what? I the amount of time that goes into these, people should be supporting your work. 100%. 100%. So by all means, people, if you buy a map, and the other cool thing about these maps too, they're almost indestructible. Why?
yeah. I mean, way back when, again, when I
Try to,
started maps, yeah, full time. Oh yeah, it's not focusing.
yeah.
Let me see if it works.
It's because my autofocus is off, but right up there
Where's my?
says
Yeah.
waterproof, uh,
Buoyant.
safe, unsinkable,
Yeah, exactly.
and
And
tear
tear
resistant. These things are
Yeah.
tough. They're made of like a mylar, or not a mylar. What's that? Oh, it's that plasticky paper. I should know the name of it, but anyway.
Yeah, no, exactly. It is a plastic. And yeah, way back when I was starting to do the
Tyvek.
maps.
Is it
Yeah,
Tyvek?
it's similar. It's not Tyvek. Yeah.
Oh, they're
Tyvek.
similar.
Yeah, it's very similar. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, hey, these are canoe tripping maps, so they better be able to stand up to a canoe trip, is my thinking, right? It totally doesn't make sense to print them on paper. You're just asking for them to fall apart. I really want to make a quality product, not just in terms of the info on the map, but the map itself. And
Mhm.
so putting it on the plastic, that is just wonderful. Uh, I remember back in the day when I'd be going to like a retail store and it's like, hey, you want to carry the maps? And one of the demos I do is you play tug of war with it.
Yeah.
You're just trying to rip the thing, right? But yeah, just trying to build the map that stands up to the trips you want to do. And I've had folks who like the previous version, because of all the business partner stuff, was from 2014, and I've got folks that are still using it today, and it's still holding up, right? And that's what I want, right? I don't want people to buy a new map because the old one sucks. I want them to buy a new map because I've just done a better job, right? So that's my
Yeah.
outlook.
Well, even authors and stuff, they have first editions, second editions, and they make improvement from book to book, right? And especially with maps, things are ever changing out there in nature, right? River courses, rocks, portage might get diverted because of blowdowns, whatever it might be. So there's always changes that come into play when this stuff is progressing, right? So it's always great to have stuff. I remember, I think it was Hap Wilson was saying, like, he always tries to, when he puts out a new edition, say for instance his Mizunami books or his Tamagami book, he's very detailed with his map orientation for, like, running rapids and stuff, and they change. They'll change from edition to edition
Yeah.
because, right? So that's cool. Now the other thing too is these maps are so big that it allows you to put in so much more detail. But do you find that if you add too much, could it become confusing for a reader
Oh
or a
yeah, I
user?
mean, okay, it's in a certain sense the easy part is, well, relatively, it's one thing to get the info, but
Yeah,
the bigger challenge, to your point, is making sure that you still make the map readable, that you make it easy to understand it's being communicated. And in my mind, the big test is, okay, if you're using one of the printed copies, and it's, the way I do it at least, is it's in the canoe in front of me. So it's kind of sitting open to where I am.
yeah,
And imagine it's a real windy day and the rain's coming down and so on. You're like, I just want to get to my campsite, right? You don't want to be babying the map or trying to hold it up and trying to figure out where you want to go. So yeah, you got to make sure that this thing, you can just take a quick glance and figure out what you got to do. And that really is the most challenging part, right? So with the Algonquin map, like I said, it's taken about 5 years. I'd say maybe a year and a half of that is assembling all the data, but way more of that was design. uh, working on, figuring out what should pop out at a glance, what should fade into the background, what color should this be. Um, Again, it gets really, really nuanced and detailed. I don't know if it's boring, but one of the things is like, okay, if all the canoe campsites are black, you want to make sure that ideally, you don't have a bunch of other things that are black too. You want to be able to look at the black stuff and know, hey, that's what I need for canoeing, right? The backpacking stuff's red. So there's conventions and stuff like that, but it comes down to like how thick are the lines, all sorts of really technical graphic design stuff. But that's ultimately how you make sure that the information stays readable even as you pack more and more on, right? Trying to make sure that the important stuff is visible at distance, and then if you start looking closer, it's, oh crap, there's other stuff on here too. But you can't make everything pop out at a distance, or suddenly you have this mess of information, you can't actually find what you need.
Yeah. Yeah, that you know what though, I kind of like the detail, all the extra detail, because when I go on trips, I like to plan, right? I really
Yeah.
like to plan what I want to see on a trip, and the fact that you can pick a route and then you can say, "Wow, I could go check that out," and I gotta go check that out, and I gotta go check
Yeah.
that out. Right? It's all there. Use it or don't use it. It's up to you, but it's there for you if
Yeah.
you want
Yeah.
to, right? A couple weeks ago, when I had the Ostroms on the show, um, Kevin Kellen had popped in, and they're Bill and Ann and Kevin were talking about a couple of their trips that they had done together, and the one thing that come up was I guess they had a wicked rainstorm or something. All their maps got wet, and they were like hanging them out to dry and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Don't have that problem with this, right? You don't even need a map case really for that. Mind you, a map case.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, man, these you could just feel the quality, like yeah, cool.
Yeah. They
We've
do have
got a
such a
few
nice feel
people in
to
the
them.
basement here. We'll get them up here for a quick question. Let's start ladies first. Let's bring up Kim Switzer. Kim, how you doing, hon?
How are ya?
Hey, Kim.
Good, good.
So
What
yeah,
you got for,
I got a couple of questions for you, and one of them, I know it's maybe something maybe you don't even want to share, but I'm gonna ask it anyways.
Go for it.
And it's really because, well, as you know, I like to Crownland camp, and I like to be kind of adventuring out where people aren't. And there really isn't any maps for me to look at except for the Crownland Policy Atlas that is not very up to date. So I guess my question would be for somebody like myself that is always looking for different routes and avenues and different maps and things that I can overlap and look at, some guidance, I guess, or websites or things that you would want to share so I can start building maps that you haven't made yet.
Yeah.
And can maybe help you track some of those things that you're looking to find.
Oh, that's such a great question. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll kind of speak to like how I would do it. Um, I find like resources like, have you ever been to like MyCCR? That's a really great resource for
Okay.
both picking people's brains, and they've got such an extensive collection of sort of form topics going back, I don't know, 25 years or something. And so there's a lot of like really obscure stuff on there. And so the way I would do it is, if you pull up, let's say, like a topo map or something like that, and you're like, I wonder about this creek. It looks, it goes from here to here, right? It's relatively long. Then you
Yeah.
go search that in a place like MyCCR, and oftentimes you'll find a bunch of info on them. And the other thing is that going back many years ago, the Ministry of Natural Resources used to maintain a bunch of Crown Land routes, which they haven't for, unfortunately, a long time.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can find some of those original route guides. They're kind of hard to find, but I think some of them are on CCR there. And again, they are quite old, so you have to fill in the gaps. But it really is, in a sense, find some route options, whether just looking at a map, looking at old guides or whatever, and then going to forums or that sort of thing, and trying to find the one or two or five people who have done it since then, And, in a
That's
sense, it'll still
exactly
be an
it.
adventure, but that's the fun bit, right?
Yeah, and like I mean, I obviously I can pull up kind of Google Earth, and I can kind of zoom in, and I look through there. I'm looking at the policy atlas. I'm kind of doing
Hmm.
that. I'm looking up, anybody else putting it out there. Hey, have you been here, done this, done that? Just trying to get as much information as I can. But yeah, finding more detailed maps or things that I can kind of overlap everything with, so I can get a better, clearer picture before I actually step foot out there.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I like to do.
No, exactly. Honestly, that's so fun because there's this sense of adventure when you do that, and in a sense, plan as you might, just hopefully make sure that it's viable and that sort of thing.
Yep.
It is always then a lot of fun of going out and discovering.
Yeah, it's totally, the map can look one way, and then when you get there, you're like, wow, that's not it, is it?
Yeah.
And vice versa. I mean, I've come across what I thought with this little itty bitty tiny stream, and I thought, oh, you know what? It's probably not even worth it. I get there and I'm like, oh my gosh, we can paddle this, and got to
Yeah.
paddle down right to this amazing lake, and it's one of
Mm.
my favorite spots now. It's no Telly Lake, so I can't share it, but that's just exactly it. Trying to find multiple sources and draw off
Hmm.
multiple mapping sources, so that I can make the best assessment before I go out scouting is, I guess, it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the one other thing I'll toss on there is, I mean, you're talking about like, well, and I kind of touched on this a bit, but when you find like a really wide creek, that's a good chance it'll be viable, right? In terms of
Yeah.
paddling, right? There might be rapids and that sort of thing you need to bushwhack around or portage around or whatever, but then a great resource to sort of pick out like, oh, what are the ones that at least look viable? Is if you go on, I think Crown Land Atlas might have as well. I'm not sure, but
Yep.
the government has like Fish Online and I make a topographic map, something like that.
Yep.
And if you look in the layers list, you can tick on aerial imagery or whatever they call it, and so that's like incredibly high quality, like way higher than Google has. Because what
Yep.
they do is it's aerial photos rather than satellite photos. It's kind of captured a lot closer, and certainly that's a source that I use for figuring out creek widths.
So one of the things that I use is an app called Hunt Stand. So I don't mind sharing it with you. And for all those hunters out there, and of course hunters like to use Crown Land as well. And it also shows you some of where the camps are and things like that. And some people, if you go on to the paid program of it, you can actually see where active hunting people are and things like that. So you can avoid that. But you have all those layers and all that mapping layers that you can do too, and as well as it will trace you, so you can go back and look at exactly where you were. You can look at other maps and go, oh yeah, I thought I was here, but no, I was here. It's pretty good, and it tells you all the little elevations and all the little movements as well. So Hunt Stand is one of the apps that I use too. So
that's great.
But
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyway, so
See, all the resources come out tonight, right?
Well, out there in the bush, your hunters, honestly, they know the lands like the back of their hands, and it's great to have a whack of hunting buddies, and that can send you some information. But maps, things like that you can take out there is essential as well. So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Kim. Appreciate all the information. Feel free to stick around for the green room afterwards.
All right.
I could drop you into the basement. Just stick around, and I'll bring you back into the green room after the show.
Cool. All right.
All right. Thanks. Talk soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Awesome. Yeah, you know what? It's amazing how people can share resources and stuff like that, right? But yeah, I'm going to bring up another guest here. Let's see here. We got Donald Dakota. How you doing, Donald?
Doing good, Dennis. How are you?
Good. You got a quick question for Matt?
I do.
Jeff?
For maps. Yeah, about maps. Nice to meet you, Jeff, over the computer.
So, nice meeting you.
All right. So I love your maps. They're wonderful. But this is my question, and I've been trying to find an answer. So I have an Ontario map right here. And there's a Quantico map up there. But anyways, so you look at maps of anywhere in the U.S. and Canada, Manitoba, north of North Bay in Ontario, everything is laid out with lines of longitude and latitude. And you'll probably know the answer to this. When you look at a map of Ontario that is south of North Bay, everything is laid out on a northwest angle.
Yeah.
Like, and so viewers can see what I'm saying is, so here's Ontario, and I'm holding this map straight up and down for north. So everything Algonquin, the townships, everything's on a northwest angle. And I'm curious, even further southern Ontario, it starts to straighten out, but then there's a lot of stuff all kind of crooked and everything. But so I'm curious as to why everything is like that. Was that a very early mapping error by geological survey in the early days of Canada, or do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, no, well, that's such a great question. Yeah, so it is going back to like mid to late 1800s, or maybe more towards mid. And it came from the time when essentially, a lot of Ontario was unknown. And so what the government did is they had surveyors lay out the geographic townships at the time, and they have a love of straight lines. So essentially, they started kind of. I mean, my memory is not great here, but I think towards like Lake Ontario, and then they made a whole bunch of squares going north based on this super arbitrary beginning point. But yeah, now as a result, everything is kind of oriented in that very strange way. But it's really just because people love squares.
I thought it might have been because the Earth is round and it's showing that it's going. What do I know? All I know is how to follow a map.
You look at Google Maps now, and when you zoom out a bit, it does show the curvature on that. But but I've wondered this for a long time because I am in the maps, and because it just doesn't make any sense because everything on a map is set at north south, except for this. So
yeah.
But that makes sense. I kind of figured it was some kind of goofy error. But anyways, yeah, the amount of work you've put in your maps is just, it's mind blowing. It's really cool. Very awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So good job on that. We'll be ordering some too, even though I don't get to Algonquin too often, but I have maps of places I'm never even going to go to. So it'd be neat to take a look at yours and pin them up a little bit.
Donald, let me tell you this: if you get these maps, you'll be wanting to go to Algonquin.
Oh well, yeah, I want to. There's Quetico and Temagami, and then Wabakimi, and if I start looking at someplace, then I get the urge to go there. So it all depends on what's on my mind at the time. So
cool. Alrighty, you know the green room too. You know the deal.
Sounds great. Thank you much. Nice meeting you, Jeff.
Thanks, Donald.
You too.
Yep, take care.
Cool. So we got one more person here in the basement right now, and that'll help us close the show out tonight, Jeff. But are there more details that you'd like to share with us as far as your maps are concerned? Stuff that you really want to pinpoint so people know about it?
Sure. I'll give you one more of my favorite new things here. I don't know if you want to toss the map on the screen. So, one of the things is you'll see all over the map, there's these. So access point, starting point, same deal. But, so they are kind of these big, dark rectangles. So they stand at a distance. So when you got to plan your trip, to see all the options. But what's really neat about them on the new map is you'll see at the right side here, there's this little QR code and a little URL below, which goes to the same place. And so if you go to this little website, essentially each access point, each starting point in the map has an individual web page. It has a whole bunch of extra info. So if you need to go rent a canoe, for example, it'll show you all the nearest outfitters. It'll show you permit info. It'll give you a little description. It'll kind of give you a sense of like why people often use this one versus others. And my favorite bit is, especially for like, again, I have lots of really obscure ones, not just the official 29 or so, but I've got a whole bunch of other really obscure ones on the outside of the park. Ones like this guy here. And so what's really neat about it is on the website, there's a big blue button that says, take me there. And so if you tap that on your phone, it'll actually route you from your exact current location to the starting point. Because one of the things is I'd realized that, yeah, especially for the obscure ones, but even the ones that are, official and so on, it's actually surprisingly not that easy to go into Google Maps and get yourself there.
Yeah.
So the great thing is that because I've gone and done this for every single one, you know that the dot at the end is the exact spot that you gotta stop the car and pull a canoe out. So yeah, I mean, this kind of extra info to me, yeah, this is one of those things where it's not even on the map, right? Well, I mean, it is, the little code is, but this also lets me then update it over time, right? So if things change, if there's closures, or if there's conditions that change, or if they're inaccessible or whatever, I can also update that after the fact. So yeah, that's a favorite one of mine, favorite feature of mine.
You know what? My,
Oh,
my jaw just hit the floor when you were explaining that. That's an incredible feature there. Like, where to go get your permits and stuff like that, or yeah,
yeah. Oh, and
incredible.
okay.
Wow.
One more. Again,
Yeah,
I keep going on and on and on, right? But
sure.
just because it's in front of me here, you'll see right here. This is one of the portages. You see on the top of these few, there's these little icons. Actually, I'll zoom in for a sec. So usually every portage, there's a reason for it, right? People don't like portaging. Portages don't exist where you don't need them. But sometimes you only need them, let's say, when there's low water, or in the odd case when there's super high water, it might be dangerous. So then I also show, yeah, where the optional portages are. So for these guys here, these are only ones that you need typically in like the late summer. Other times of year, the creek has enough water that you can just paddle on right by. And so, of course, the idea of skipping a portage, and 9 times out of 10, it's not viable. But there certainly are ones that really are only like high water, low water, or whatever portages. And so, man, it feels so great to know we don't got to do this one. It's always funny, you're paddling by and somebody else is doing it. You're like, oh, have fun. So
Wow,
that's another fun feature. Yeah, exactly. Oh, man.
wow.
Oh,
Had a really interesting question come up here a few minutes ago in
yeah.
the chat. I gotta post this one for you because it makes sense. How bad will it screw you up if if Algonquin goes to a numbered flight system like Killarney?
Oh, what a great question. So that actually definitely went through my mind. And before you're asking about future features, so one of the features that I was considering putting on the Algonquin map, or sort of a group of features, had to do with reservation stuff. So in Algonquin, of course, you book by lake, or zone, if you will, rather than by site. And sometimes there's some ambiguity to that. It can be confusing. Like, what are you supposed to book on the system? So I was going to sort of show you in the reservation system, like what should you enter for this campsite, that campsite, that campsite to book it. But I ended up scrapping that because I was like, yeah, if I go and do that and they go and change everything, I'm going to be in trouble. It's one thing to not have, if they go and add campsite numbers. It's one thing to not have them, but I think it's a different thing to have the wrong info on there. So yeah, I mean, they're really just if they add the campsite numbers, then let's go through and add them and update the map and all that. But it did then kind of stop me from adding some stuff for the current reservation system, just in case.
Right. Now you've been selling these new maps for about 2 months now.
Yeah, exactly. Almost
Individual
exactly.
sales. Yeah, about it for the individual sales of particular Algonquin maps. Which one seems to be the most popular right now?
Oh, West. Yeah.
The West.
West
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I always find this neat. So yeah, the order is roughly west, central, south, northeast. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So I think there's a lot of like Southern Ontario demand, and yeah.
Excellent. We have somebody in the basement. You were actually on his Whiskey Fireside chat about 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. Let's bring Kevin up here because I'm sure he has some great questions for you too. Kevin, how you doing, buddy?
Woo!
Hello.
Hey, fancy seeing you again.
Yeah,
Hey.
I know. Oh, we keep bumping into each other. It's terrible. I see you don't have the tape between your glasses.
Not yet.
No.
Forgot to do that for you. Sorry, Kev. If I knew you were coming, I totally would have done that just for you.
All right.
Kevin's
I
always
should
here.
have done- I should have done that for myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Kevin, it's funny. I asked Jeff if he's ever watched any. Has he ever watched any episodes? And he said no. We got to turn him into a believer for Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show.
What? Jeff has never watched the show?
Nope. He's
Yeah.
busy making maps.
No, and he's too busy making maps. He's got no time for us. He's got no time.
I got to correct my priorities.
That's
right.
true. That's true. I got a question for you. I kind of dealt with a bit on the whiskey chat, whatever, but I got a few more tidbits of information after that. So too much information is too much information equals less adventure. Have you had someone come up to you and say that to you?
Oh yeah, definitely. In my, I've had people saying it's all sorts of things, all the way from way back when people were really just familiar with the park map. I had someone say like the lake shapes are too detailed. So I've had that all the way to you mentioned on your show there was a fellow who was didn't appreciate the showing the hills and the portages, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so different people, they have different perspectives on what they're looking for in a map. But in my very biased opinion, it's all about, hey, if you didn't know it was there to begin with, you might just be walking on by. So yeah, especially for.
But what about this one? So this is a unique case study. This one. So I remember it was a couple of years ago. Actually, I was in Killarney, the town of Killarney, and I'm having a drink with the locals, and they come up, and I know them, and they said, "Do you know this Jeff guy?" And I went, maybe. This is when you were like, deny. And I said, what's the issue? And they're like, well, on his map, he showed this secret lake of ours in the park that I have some native brook trout that nobody knows about, except now they do. And all these Southerners are coming up and they now know our secret. We're going to kill them. So in one sense, though, Jeff, they actually have a good point. I mean, there's locals that live there all their lives, and they know about this one lake. And you, from the city of Toronto, show everybody around the world where this secret lake is. Not only the lake, but also it has a unique species of trout. Is there a fine line with that? I mean, you live the life of telling people where to go. I do as well. So I know exactly how you feel, but is there a fine line with that? Did you sort of say, maybe I shouldn't have put that lake in the map?
Oh, that's so interesting. So the way I look at it, now I'll digress here for just 1 second. I found, like, for example, when I was working on my Temagami map early on, that it was kind of interesting because, like, there's let's say, I think on my map I had like 80 or 90 access points, right? But when you read online, almost everybody starts from like a dozen, right? It's kind of the same spots over and over. And I think that a lot of it comes from, you're on like a forum or something like that, Facebook these days, whatever, and everybody talks about the same things. And so you get a lot of people going to a relatively small number of spots. And the way I look at it is, and I don't know if you'd heard that kind of earlier in the show, but I look at it as I almost want to overwhelm people with options, and then they can pick and choose. But ideally, then you're not driving everyone towards the same spot. To get back to the fishing thing, it's like, yeah, I do show what species are on what lake, but I don't go and say, hey, this is the good lake. I say, look, there's all these lakes, and you go here or here or here or here or here, and I'm sure then some people will go to that particular lake, right? But hopefully then by not showing everyone really just a relatively small number of things, but really ideally as many things as possible, you're not really then driving everyone actually towards one spot.
Yeah, it is a fine line, and good luck with that, because it's not easy to appease everybody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to circumnavigate it, right?
Well, trout spots are different. I mean, Jeff has never done that. He showed that there's brook trout in that lake, but he didn't say you were going to catch them. And that's I would go and kill you. But it was really interesting though too. Is that I many times I've researched for 5 years a particular lake, and I found it was good fishing. And because I have this blue canoe, I've actually had literally vehicles follow me down a dirt road, and I've stopped and said, "Can I help you?" And they're like, "No, we're just finding where you're going." Right. So I'm thinking,
What?
oh man, I did all this work for 5 years and you follow me and now you got the information just for like 20 minutes of your life. Like, so once again, is there too much information equals less adventure?
I mean, again, like if we're talking fishing specifically, first.
Let's forget about the fishing.
Oh,
Let's forget
general?
fishing. Swimming spots, like in your Algonquin map, swimming
Yeah.
spots, freshwater streams, or freshwater historical spots. I get, because that's a kind of given, or even maybe logging roads. I get that whole idea. Like, oh, I can't believe Ontario Parks is pissed with you for logging roads, but maybe they don't want you to use those logging roads. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe they don't, not you in particular, but maybe some, evil people would actually look at your map and say, hey, I didn't know that logging road was there. I'm going to use it. And by the way, when they say they gate it, I know a lot of people that know how to get through those gates. So maybe that's the reason. I don't know. Maybe they should be on the show answering, but they won't. But that's another show.
No, I mean, logging road's another great one, right? But I'll give you a little story, right? In Killarney, there was the George OSA portage, unofficial portage. The park didn't like that people were using it. But, in that case, I did get a call actually from the assistant superintendent at one point kind of saying that he had said, well, we're either going to open it as an official portage or we're going to, close it down so no one's using it. And they ended up deciding, to close it. But what I had told them is, hey, right now, when we're having the call, it's completely legal to use. So, it's a fact. It's there. I'm not going to pretend it's not. But you guys, through the law and so on, you have the power to go and change that, as they did. And so I'll certainly show the reality as it stands. But, looking at logging roads, for example, on that sort of line, right now, like I said, obviously they're completely legal to use, to walk, that is, at least. Portages go down them, and you're going down them anyways. So, my perspective is if they don't want people to use it, they certainly have the tools to change that. But, I'm not going to sort of pretend that reality is different just because they want that, even though they don't want to sort of act on it. So,
yeah, it's a fine line.
On another note, though, like say, for instance, with the logging roads, that could be a safety feature within your map. If somebody gets themselves a loser canoe or something happens that they have to hike their behind out of there, and they could see that there's a logging road and that's going to take them to the 60 corridor or over to Highway 11 or up to the set. You know what I mean? That could be a safety feature as well to say, hey, look, there's a freaking logging road here, man. We don't have to hit the SOS button because we could walk out because we hit our canoe or whatever, right?
I know, for example, like Camp Pathfinder, one of the Algonquin camps there, they definitely did use the logging roads on my map for that purpose.
Mm-hmm. There you go. So it may not, the parks may not like it, but as a safety feature, that's like a built-in safety feature to the map, right?
I think what's going on in the world now is we're like, going back in time when I wrote my very first book on Killarney, and back then there was you could go hiking up the crack, and to do that though, the park superintendent would tell you had to start from the main campground and go there. But the locals told me up the road, there's a place you just park along the roadside and follow that trail. Well, now, and of course, when I went to do that, the park said, please do not tell people that. We don't want people to know that. And I'm talking back in the 80s, okay? That's how old I am. But now there's a parking spot, there's a parking permit system. There's so many people going up from that area that they don't know what to do with. You have to book way ahead before you even get there. So you can't stop it. I guess what I'm getting at is, if I'm thinking back, you can't stop progress, right? You can't stop Jeff. Jeff's out of control.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously that one is like, the park also, of course, made the choice to build the parking lot, expand the trail, and so on. I'm not here to tell them what they should or shouldn't do, but certainly that happened long before I was there, because I'm younger.
Oh.
Okay, guys, we only got 5 minutes left here for the show. I want to ask Jeff, is there
Yeah.
anything else about the maps that you would really like to get across? Because this is ultimately again about Jeff's maps in the Algonquin. No, seriously, I don't want to miss anything if possible.
Oh no, I mean, I think all feature wise and all that sort of stuff, I've really talked my head off. But certainly, if you do want to check the map out, you just go to my website. It's mapsbyjeff.com. And in fact, the
Get that
whole
straight.
map is there. Yeah, mapsbyjeff.com. And the whole map is there online, so you can browse it, the whole thing, check it out, and hopefully plan some trips.
Did you want to maybe cover any pricing or anything like that, or just let them
Oh, sure.
find out?
Yeah, discover it yourself. No, yeah. So the way I price it is, one of the maps is $25, but as you get more, they get cheaper. So two is, let me get this right. You get 5% off for two. You get 10% off for three. 15. Oh yeah, this is easy. 15% off for four, and 20% off for five. So yeah, it ranges from one is $25, whereas if you get all five, it gets down to essentially $20 each. So yeah.
Yeah. So, and I want to add this to the cost structure. Some people might go, "Oh my goodness, $25! I can get a Tamagami map for $14.95 or whatever." Right? You're not getting this quality because these here, the material that this stuff is printed on, and as a printer myself, I could vouch for this. This material is not cheap. Like I could just imagine what your cost is to have these printed, Jeff. And then you've got all the other stuff that's gone into it. Your 5 years of blood, sweat, and tears. So worth every penny. Worth every penny. And
I agree.
I got to get a PayPal thing for you there because I need to send you something for some of these too. So yes, by all means. Wow, Kevin, if you could add one thing to Jeff's maps, what would it be?
Peace in the world.
Peace in the world. Can
Yes.
you incorporate that into your map?
Sure. I'll make a note on that.
Has there ever been a feature that you wish was on a map that that perhaps is not on most maps?
Every time a new map comes out, I think I'm more excited about the new edition. I love maps. I mean, I live off maps, right? I think what Jeff did was amazing too, because I got his maps, and you get the real maps, and then they get the digital, and then you have the Kevin on there, so nobody can steal it. I think that's really interesting. Or if they do steal it, they know they got it from me. So it's like, I'm a drug dealer, and now everybody knows it. So I think that's really really unique. I think to add it, maybe you probably already have it on your maps, but a quote about some sense of adventure, like go off and search your own adventure, right? Because sometimes a map is really kind of cool, but I do remember my buddy Andy. He still does this to this day, especially when I was writing my guidebooks. We'd go across the lake, and he would take the map away from me, and he goes, "Just paddle across the bloody Lake Callan. You don't need to." Okay, there's the lake there. You see it, and sometimes we forget that. So, but then again, I've known you through the years, and you know that it's not. Mind you, I did see you going across the portage with like this before. But
No, it's like that. I was gonna say no, it's like that.
yeah, but Jeff, people should know that Jeff is an amazing paddler. Like he's done a lot of things. Like he did the Minas Link, and he's done a bunch of other trips, whatever. So this is not his first rodeo.
No.
Yes, sir.
So 3 final questions that we have saved. One is mine. Why can't we use those maps with the GPS inReach?
So I think you said you have a Garmin GPS map 66i. That's totally
Yes.
fine. What
really?
is that, yeah. So what it is that like the inReach and inReach Mini, what happened is that those aren't, they say Garmin on the front. They're not actually Garmin devices. Garmin bought another company called DeLorme, I believe.
Yeah.
And so those devices don't run the same software as the other Garmin's, and they don't have any ability to install a custom map, if you will. Whereas the 66i, I've got a 66S right here, very similar. And all of the sort of Garmin based models, everything really except the inReach and inReach Mini, as far as I know, all those other models completely support the map, but it's just the inReach, because it's this different software base. They don't support custom maps, unfortunately. But again, just the InReach and InReach Mini, not the other diamonds.
Okay, so I should be able to install those maps onto my. Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah, if you have questions, just reach out. But you're golden.
Perfect. Where'd this one go here? Oh, somebody wants to know. Have you ever considered doing YouTube videos of your trips? Do you have your favorite YouTubers?
Have I considered doing YouTube videos of trips? I don't know. It's weird. I'm not really like a photo and video guy. Like I like looking at them after, but on the trip, I'm either gonna be like all thinking about video recording and not appreciating what's going on, or just appreciating what's going on and kind of not doing the photo stuff. So I really leave the video stuff to other folks on YouTube, other folks on my trips, and so on. And I just don't really capture a bunch, unfortunately. I always regret it after, but yeah. And do I have any favorite YouTubers? Yeah. I mean, I follow your guys' stuff. Knocks on Wood. That's a great channel, by the way. Who else? This is the problem. I have it all saved in my YouTube. You know, it's at the side there. I just click on all the ones that say new. But now that you're putting me on the spot, oh no. Yeah. Knocks on Woods, though. It's best.
Cool. And Graham Jordan wants to know, Jeff, will you be at the Outdoor Adventure Show in Toronto?
I will be. Yeah. I'll be at the Algonquin Outfitters booth all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if you are there, go to the AO booth and find me. I'll be right there. And it'll be so fun to chat.
Excellent. Jeff, thanks very much for joining us tonight on this 150th episode. A very special guest now of the show. I look forward to using these. I look forward to using these maps myself this summer. I plan on going to Algonquin at least once. I'm a Crownland camper like Kim Switzer. So, but excellent job on these things, my friend. Excellent job. Where can people find more information about you and maybe get your maps?
Yeah, so just go to my website. It's again Maps by Jeff. You can even see my little thing in the bottom corner there. Maps by Jeff. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
There we go. Mapsbyjeff.com.
To make it easy, I put the links to Jeff's website, his Instagram, and his Facebook connections all down in the chat below. So by all means, give it a visit and buy some maps. Buy some maps for yourself. There you go. Jeff, thanks again, and we'll see you in a few short moments in the green room.
Yeah, what a great time. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, Jeff. Have a good one. Well, that is awesome. You know what? Right now, Maps by Jeff is all the rage. Everybody seems to be very excited by these new things that come out, and that has to say something to the quality of the maps. But I rest assured, as I said, the size of these maps and the detail that he has on there, use it for what you can use it for. If there's stuff on there that you don't like, just blind's eye past it, right? But if you're planning a trip to Algonquin Park this year, or if you just want some really cool maps to check out, because these things are, you could quite literally, one of these things open on a table, both sides, you could be mesmerized for hours of details, even just reading about what's going on, what's in the park, what is where, historical things and things of that sort. So you could go on there and you can just get an education of Algonquin Park through reading these maps. Anyways, just wanted to remind everybody that next week there will not be a show. This guy's going to be basking in the sun of Dominican Republic. And unless I find some canoeing adventures there, who knows? Maybe I'll do a live stream right from the beach or something. That would be really cool, but probably not very probable. Anyways, so there won't be a show next week. Follow us on Facebook at Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show, and you will be able to see what's coming up in the future there. We got all these outdoor adventure shows coming up, and Canoecopia and the Quiet Adventure Symposium and stuff. Look them all up there. Great events coming up. It's that time of year where people have got the itch to get out there and start getting their canoe trips all planned. So with that being said, thanks for watching the 150th episode featuring Maps by Jeff McMurtrie, and have yourselves a great week. Remember, please do keep the adventures alive. Until next time.